And so whenever I think about teaching, I think of that as primary, this idea, this need to have this infectious energy and enthusiasm for what you're doing that you can somehow infect the kids with. And then it just kind of takes off from there, and letting them see their own path in it all. You know, all their paths are different. And if you can help them to see that they have a path and to figure out what that path is, and that path is far beyond the classroom, I feel like I've accomplished something. And I feel like I got that from her.
Interesting.
So we shot it.
So the similar principle, it was a passion. It was like real energy and she said, we can do this desire to do something.
Right. I mean, it started with her passion. She was like, we could do this. This would be great. They would love this. We sent out the email. I sent out the email after I got home from my daughter's swim practice at like 9 o'clock that night. 4 of the 5 of them had responded that night. And then we caught the 2 the first thing in the morning. And we're like, this is a good amount of work. You'll have to memorize these songs over the weekend. We'll pull you out of class to learn the music, but you're going to have to memorize songs in Russian, you know, how they go, the music, and little speeches about them. And they were super excited. And then it was just like an email storm. We were on this email together. And it was amazing to see the collaboration that occurred. And it was so seamless because they knew it was a contest of Russian song. They knew they were singing these songs, and they knew they wanted them to be good. And like, we never stated that, but like they knew that. And so they're like, what do we need? And I'm like, okay, I have costume ideas. I sent those out, and then immediately, I have 3 white shirts. I don't have this. Does anyone have that? I don't have this. And when we're just like, bring all of your props. And we bring them to a dress rehearsal. They've individually learned a little bit of choreography, never together. And like during the dress rehearsal, they were going through the choreography, and we were making sure the cameras worked. And then this morning we shot it. And the thing is, they were so pumped, so amazing. Still like freaked out because like they had just memorized this and they weren't sure, you know, a few false takes, like, oh, I forgot the words. But we also were on a real time schedule. Like Molly Doyle had to leave this morning at 7:45. We had exactly an hour. So it couldn't go wrong a million times. And then Nathan had to leave for an SAT thing that he was actually late to a little later. So, you know, Nathan did all this work to record himself playing the piano, and then we couldn't get the kind of the plug-in to work, and so then it ended up being a cappella, and they were fine with it. Sam Dussman forgot his stuff got taken from behind the stage, so he didn't have his dress white shirt and pants, and so Molly Doyle had an extra shirt, and they were trying to decide which one was less girly, and Sam wore Molly's shirt. And then he happened, like they did a 70s song, and his pants were actually corduroys, like dark corduroys, so he didn't actually have his black pants because they were dressing up. And like they just flew with it. It was like, okay, that didn't work, we'll do this. And so it was amazing to also see just how resilient they were, because like so many things didn't work exactly the way they wanted it to, but they just plowed forward. And they were, you know, it was just, it's so amazing to watch them.
Yeah, so, you know, it's funny because I haven't been thinking in terms of like a moment. I've tended to think more in terms of like the big picture of what Grow has done, and I tend to think in terms of concepts or principles. You remember when I think on the very first day I mentioned that I'm especially interested in collaboration, and I'm always thinking, you know, how can I break it down? What are the components that seem to be universal, that always show up in good collaboration? I more and more have my eye on this. The best scenario is bringing, say, 4 or 5 kids together, and every one of them is thinking about, what do I contribute to the group, right? That's the default. It's not, what do I take away? It's not like, look at the group right away and maybe a little suspicion, and I'm totally consumed in what am I going to take away from this, which is a killer. But if we can inspire kids to think first, what do I contribute, right? Knowing that if I contribute something, I will definitely take something away later. You know, I think the best collaboration I've seen, that's another element there. The other thing that's kind of related to that is thinking in terms of how do I relate to the others around me and everything around me, as opposed to how do I expect all those other things and people to relate to me. You know, it's a similar thing, because if we're kind of mired, to use one of your favorite words, mired in this thinking of other things have to conform to my expectations, it throws up roadblocks and obstacles. But if I have kind of an outward orientation, I have to do some things to relate to others, and be willing to kind of stretch beyond myself, because the best results may be something completely different from what I expect. You know, and the other thing, I think we've witnessed it here. This is maybe the most profound thing to me. Just meaningful conversation. I mean, again, that's like the nucleus of collaboration. It starts with meaningful conversation where it's has a totally positive orientation, right? No complaining, no dwelling on what we can't do, but it's all positive, and it's kind of a yes and what's next. You know, I've experienced that here with the Grow. You know, sometimes I come at the end of the day and I'm tired, but after 2 hours here, it's like I'm rejuvenated, you know.
Yeah.
So positive. And so I'm really interested in when people come together with that attitude, what comes out of that, right? It's way more than just 9 people bringing themselves together, right? There's a really cool little video that I use in my documentary project. It's a short 5-minute piece by Ken Burns, wonderful documentarian. And we watch a number of his documentaries to get a sense of good documentary. But he's talking about the process, and he has this interesting little statement, 1 + 1 = 3. And he's talking about the power of a story. You know, it goes beyond just what you expect it to be. But I think there's an element of that in collaboration too, that, you know, it's not just the simple sum of the few coming together. There's something almost a little mystical that comes from it that we don't even totally understand, when everyone is really genuinely motivated in unity. Something bigger than what we expect almost always comes from it. That's I think the biggest takeaway for me from all of what we've been doing. It's just kind of heightened my passion for collaboration.